if you're a big fan of Ayn Rand, you're probably not going to like this next slide because I'm going to talk about where she was wrong. Her heroes were captains of industry. Now, I know that's just, she was using these people to describe a concept. But the captains of industry today are the quintessential regulation surfers. They're not adding value. And I know this sounds like a socialist or communist or Marxist thing to say, but the guy in the cubicle, or the guy in the cab of the truck, or the guy holding the welder, or the guy turning the wrench, he's the guy actually creating the value. Now, he may be using capital and machines to do it. But the guy sitting in the head office, in many cases, he's there because he survived an evolutionary process which creates people who are good at getting effective business models in place, or are good at getting government grants, or good at getting government contracts. He's not adding value. So Ayn Rand was wrong in that you can't look at Atlas Shrugged and say, it's the top guy who's really the Atlas. Because you look at conservative media, every time they mention it, it's always the guy in the corner office. Sorry, dude. That's not John Galt. John Galt is chained to a cubicle in there somewhere. Or he's punching a time clock. That's John Galt. Her book also talked about naive government power. Boy, I wish we had the oppressive government that she wrote about in her book, as opposed to what we have now, and what's headed our way. Yeah, there were some bad actors and they did some bad things, but not on the scale or to the degree that our government is headed in. And it's also not possible to go away to a Galt sculpture. Like the lady said earlier today, you got to be John Galt. You got to create your Galt sculpture where you're at, and that's true. There's nowhere on earth that we cannot go that they will not hunt us down, bomb us, burn us, or haul us away because we've given them too many toys to do it with. So that means the crisis that she talked about in her book that was a half measure, it's not how it works. You're not going to have a situation where there's going to be this deepening crisis where suddenly halfway in the middle of it, everybody says, you know, you guys, you're right, we're going to stop taking from you. No, that's not how it works. Crises will continue to accelerate in severity and intensity. So we have an unstoppable crisis looming. Anybody doubt that? The crisis also represents risk and opportunity. There is a possibility to free ourselves at the other end of it. We didn't start it, we're not going to start it. We don't have to start it. We're starting it for us. But we can use it and shape it if we know what we want the outcome to be. So stop clawing. Stop holding it back. Let it come in. A judo master would say, use their energy against them. Let it just come rushing in and just step out of the way. There's the cliff. Hit it. This is the worst crisis underway since the Dark Ages. It's worse than the Revolutionary War. Boy, I wish we were fighting an enemy that was 3,000 miles away at the other end of the long logistical chain. That would be cool. Sign me up for that one. All of your tax dollars that paid for that Marine Corps and Naval Academy education, I can put that to good use in that environment. And then still, spend half the day reading. Civil War, same thing. I wish it was as nice as the North burning down courthouses and destroying all the property, because at least you wouldn't be watched by drones or have chips implanted in you or whatever may be headed our way. Boy, that would be a nice time. Great Depression, 90% or more of the people lived in areas where they could grow their own food. Now, 90% or more lived in areas where they don't. Again, Great Depression will be sweet, as would the 70s. What a naive regulatory environment that was. I hear people complain about the 70s after having run my own businesses for 10 years or more. I'm thinking, man, if I could deal with those regulations, I would just be cranking compared to what we have now. Or any foreign economic failure you can name, because in every case, the U.S. was there to bail them out, ultimately. It's not going to get that bad because we're going to come in and spend money. When we go going down, there's not going to be anybody out there to bail us out. And there's also been irreparable economic damage caused. Small business owners have been devastated lately. And we hear the media, the pundits saying, oh, it's shaking out the losers. Really? You mean those losers who were working hard and just weren't noticing that you were sneaking up behind them to destroy everything they've earned? Those losers? Where where is the outrage over the guy who did nothing wrong other than invest in his business and then have the credit markets deliberately destroyed underneath it? Or the small farmer who's had everything he owns taken away, or is about to have it taken away. Oh, by the way, where does the food come from? Oh yeah, those farms, but we'll get to that later. Our devastated homeowners. We hear stories about how, well, there are people who bought houses who shouldn't have bought houses. Well, surprise, surprise, there's also a lot of people who don't fall into the, if you could even define people who shouldn't have bought houses, that's a ridiculous thing, but there's a lot of people, most of the people that got hit by real estate are not in that category, but they're destroyed nonetheless. There are people who can't move to take a better job because they can't sell their house. And if you look at the regulations for who gets the benefit of these government programs, you have to first become destitute before you qualify. Which means the guy who owned his own business, he no longer has the capital to hire anybody. He no longer has the capital to produce anything of value. Irreparable economic damage. And the kids of these people, how do we say to them, you work hard, you save, you do your thing, and it's going to work out for you, hey, American dream. They've seen mom and dad get destroyed for trying that. And we haven't taught them anything in school that's worth knowing. So what are they going to do? What's the next generation going to see? They're not going to be motivated to try. And we have this overwhelming regulatory environment we've been talking about. We've experienced in the South, I don't know if it's in the other areas of the country, but recently in the South, there's been the largest equipment auctions in the world in history, some of the largest. There's one big auction down in Florida, 70% of the material being auctioned off was small family farms and businesses. Gone forever. You will never convince these people again. Try, do it, succeed. Because they know it's bull. Irreparable economic damage, which is leading to a destruction of productive capacity. These farms, to try to save themselves, they're tearing the roofs off of their buildings, off of their barns, off of their stalls. Why do they take the roofs off? Because if they take the roofs off, they no longer have to pay property tax. But what do you put in a stall, in a barn? You put stuff and animals that you use to grow food. You take the roofs off, we might as well be living in the Middle Ages. Irreparable economic damage. People who will never buy in again. And I don't blame them. Out there on the web, if you're watching this, don't lose hope. Don't lose your faith in free trade. It's not free trade. You've had this stuff stolen from you. But we will win. We will rebuild this, but without them. Don't lose hope.